Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for Safety and Handling of Phosphates webinar with our speaker, Darin Skutt with Carus. I'm Ashley Swingle, your moderator, also with Carus. A few housekeeping items before we get started. All attendees are in listen-only mode to help cut down on any background noise. If you have questions, we encourage you to submit those throughout the presentation using the question pane in the GoToWebinar panel or email us directly. If you submit questions through GoToWebinar, we will receive a report with the question and your contact information to follow up directly after the webinar. If you're interested in receiving a PDF or recording of the presentation, please contact us. We encourage you to share the recording within your network. Here are a few ways to find us. We have listed our website and general sales and marketing email address, as well as my email address. Do you receive our email blast for upcoming webinars, presentations, trade shows, and technical information on our various solutions? If not, sign up on our website. You can find the Join Our Email list on any landing page on the right-hand side. Be sure to select the industry when signing up to ensure you receive the most targeted information for your needs. And we can't forget to mention our social media platforms. We encourage you to connect with our Carus page as well as our team members on LinkedIn, where we're often sharing upcoming events, including webinars, industry articles or news, sharing relevant posts from industry experts, and more. And then listed here is our website and our links for our webinars for upcoming and our also free on-demand webinars. Okay, at this time, I would like to take the opportunity to introduce our speaker, Mr. Darin Skutt. Darin has worked for Carus for over 20 years. As the technical marketing specialist, Darin conducts laboratory testing and product demonstrations for Carus's municipal, industrial, and environmental customers and prospective new customers. These product demonstrations include technical training, safety presentations, and installation of safe chemical handling and dosing systems. He is a graduate of Illinois Wesleyan University in Bloomington, Illinois, with a Bachelor of Science degree in Chemistry, ACS certified. Mr. Skutt is a member of AWWA, Water Environment Federation, and the American Chemical Society.
Good afternoon, everyone. So just to touch on some general information on phosphates. Phosphates have been used for many years in drinking water treatment. We're going to cover all the different product lines that Carus has, and they're used for two main applications in drinking water treatment. Phosphates are used for corrosion control, and typically we think of orthophosphates, zinc orthophosphates, and blended phosphate products used for this application. Generally, we're trying to get into compliance with the lead and copper rule. The other main application in drinking water treatment is sequestration. This would include blended phosphates or polyphosphates used to tie up iron and manganese that can cause discolored water, or to tie up calcium, which can cause scaling. A study that was done by the American Water Works Association showed that over half of all water utilities in the US use some type of phosphate-based product for either corrosion control or sequestration. Like I mentioned earlier, there are three major applications, and that will determine what type of product you use and then also what type of safety and handling you have to have in place. But those main applications for phosphates are calcium carbonate scale control, sequestering of iron and manganese, and a major application is lead and copper corrosion control. One thing to keep in mind with the safety and handling of any type of product is that we also may come in contact with it on a daily basis and other things that we use. Phosphates are used in a wide variety of applications in addition to drinking water. Some of those applications include phosphate used as a food additive, as a leavening agent in breads and donuts. It's used as a dairy emulsifier in cheese, and it's in the can of Coke or Pepsi you drink as phosphoric acid. Now, you also will come in contact with phosphates as pharmaceutical additives. If you turn over your toothpaste tube, you'll see different types of phosphate compounds listed, and they work as both a plaque inhibitor and a whitening agent. It's also used in some drug manufacture. By far, the largest use of phosphate around the world and in the US is in fertilizers, for both your grass in your lawn and for growing stuff in fields like soybeans and corn. 80% of the phosphate use in the world is used in those types of applications. Phosphates can also be used as cleaners and detergents to keep our clothes clean, to keep our cookware clean as well. Just keep in mind you do come in contact with these products on a daily basis in a variety of applications. Our intention here with this presentation is to provide a broad overview of important safety issues and to explain how the global harmonization requirements have impacted the phosphate products. Chemical safety is a complex topic with many different components. This webinar is going to address a variety of important topics ranging from regulatory standards, worker exposure, chemical reactivity, disposal of wastes, and ultimately to disposal of the empty packages that you have. I will cover as many of these topics as I can in the presentation, but remember that we have many safety experts on staff who stay up to date on the newest information. You can always consult us anytime after the completion of this webinar. By way of introduction, I'd like you to know that Carus is a member of the American Chemistry Council, ACC. And as a member, we participate in the ACC's Responsible Care Initiative. There are several important principles that form the program, but none more important than to protect the safety of our workplace staff and our customers. Today's program is one part of our ongoing customer safety communications effort. As part of this responsible care, we as a company have a secure facility with gates and key cards. We want to reduce our emissions when we make our products. We want to increase our energy efficiency while making those products. And then, like I mentioned, both product safety and communication across the board for both our employees here, our transportation partners getting the product to your door, and then also when you use the product as an end user. Carus is RCMS certified. Now, this presentation is really split into two halves because there is quite a bit of difference in the safety information depending on what type of product you're using. This first section of the presentation is going to cover orthophosphate products and zinc orthophosphate products. These products can be available in two different forms. We have several dry powders available, typically in the Carus 3000 series, so 3050, 3150, 3250, etc. Then we also have a wide range of concentrated liquid phosphate products as well. These would be in the Carus 3000 series and the Carus 4000 series. 3000 would include things that have zinc, and 4000 series would be things that were just orthophosphate based with no zinc content. As you can see in the pictures, the product is typically going to look clear in solution when you get the liquid product, and the dry is going to look like a granular powder. Now, our safety communication and potential hazards, specific worker protections, remediation options is accomplished through a variety of methods. In addition to webinars such as this one, the common routes are these shown here. Safety data sheets. In Europe, it'll be chemical safety reports, package labels, pictograms, and warning placards are all ways of us communicating the safety information for our products. As our understanding of product application evolves or as regulation changes, these communication routes can be reformatted or revised. Now, this brings us to the recent Global Harmonized System, GHS, for hazard communication. There's a drive for consistency or harmonization across the world for the way the information is delivered for safety. The safety data sheet is still our most important safety literature piece. They're available on our website or also by emailing us and requesting one. You see a copy of one of our specific safety data sheets on the right-hand side of the screen. As of last year, the GHS safety data sheet replaces the previous material safety data sheet. So you'll hear our things now called safety data sheets, SDSs, instead of MSDSs. One way to know if you've got the most current information is all of our information for safety will now be on a safety data sheet. This switch also signals that everything will be in a 16-section format in a specific order. Of special note, one of the first things you'll see on the very front page of a safety data sheet is new red, black, and white pictograms as part of that formatting. We have a safety data sheet available for each of our phosphate products out there. Now, depending on the orthophosphate or zinc orthophosphate product you have, you're going to see several different pictograms, possibly corrosive, specifically aquatic toxicity, or specific target organ toxicity for respiratory tract and lungs. Now, depending on the type of product, you'll also see it listed as if it's a solid form or a liquid form. These products are typically stable under normal conditions, but we'll go into more detail as we go through the safety information. So here are the two health hazard pictograms that are required for liquid zinc orthophosphate products. These pictograms apply to all different package sizes, from drums to IBCs to bulk. You'll see that the product has corrosive and specific target organ toxicity. Each of these has a different category, and if you want information about each of the individual categories, you can go to the OSHA.gov website below to get detailed information on why each of these classifications mean. Zinc orthophosphates have a low pH, hence the skin corrosion irritation and the serious eye damage irritation of category 1. Because of the zinc content, that's why we have the toxicity of category 3 and category 1, depending on what it's targeting. In addition to the pictograms that you see on the SDS, we also have signal words, hazard statements, and precautionary statements that are on the phosphate labels on the product itself. They are designed to better define the health and safety impacts of the product being used. If signal words are required, there are only two that you will see on the label. It'll either be warning or danger. The signal word for these phosphates is danger for orthophosphates and zinc orthophosphates. The specific hazard statement you will see for phosphates, because of the low pH of these types of products, will be causes severe burns, skin burns, eye damage, may cause respiratory irritation, causes damage to the organs, lungs through prolonged or repeated exposure, very toxic to aquatic life with long-lasting effects. These all refer to the neat exposure to the neat product. Basically, this is establishing the corrosive potential. These are the new phosphate precautionary statements that you will see. The wording is specific to the phosphate and linked to the physical hazards associated with them. You'll see many different categories on each of these labels. So the precautionary statements will list prevention, response, storage, and disposal. For prevention, do not breathe a mist or a vapor of these products. Wear protective gloves, clothing, eye protection, face protection. Avoid release to the environment. Response: if you were exposed to the chemical, in this case if swallowed, rinse mouth, do not induce vomiting. If on skin or hair, take off contaminated clothing, rinse skin in a water or shower, wash contaminated clothing before reuse, and then if inhaled, remove person to fresh air, keep comfortable for breathing. The last one, eyes, rinse cautiously with water for several minutes, remove contact lenses if present, continue rinsing. If exposed to this product, call a poison center doctor, and then also collect the spillage. For storage, these products should be stored inside and locked up. And disposal of the containers and contents should be in accordance with your local, regional, national, and international regulations, depending on where you're located. This is the only environmental hazard that applies to the phosphate products we're discussing. Hazardous to the aquatic environment, acute, category 1, and then hazardous to the aquatic environment, long-term hazard, category 1. Because of phosphates' environmental impact, it's related to the quantity of material that may be released to the environment. And we'll talk about that later in this presentation. Lastly, physical hazards. These products, because of the low pH, are corrosive to metals. So you will also see this pictogram. So one of the most important things on an SCS, besides the pictograms, is phosphate worker safety when handling these products. So what should be the personal protective equipment that you use when you're handling these types of products? The SDS will contain the most current recommendations for each product that we have. Some of the things that are currently listed on our SDSs are to provide adequate ventilation. Dust or mist from the product may irritate the respiratory tract. Eye protection must be worn. Depending on the type of product and how much exposure you may have, it can be as simple as safety glasses with side shields, or leveled up to goggles, or leveled up to a face shield, depending on exposure. Also, you should avoid skin contact with phosphate products like these. So in addition to normal work clothing covering arms, legs, you'll want to wear gloves and an apron possibly. Some common sense things: do not eat or drink the concentrated phosphate product. If you were to drink or eat this product, because of the corrosive nature, it can cause severe burns of the mouth, throat, esophagus, and stomach. Information on the personal protective equipment is included on the safety data sheet and also on all product labels on the phosphate products. The inhalation exposure scenarios for phosphate products, for the most part, only apply to the dry powders. When transferring the material from its package of a bag or a pail into a storage hopper, a fine dust can be released. Phosphate dust can be an irritant, and breathing it should be avoided. So you should wear a dust mask or a dust respirator. Now, it also mentions mist. It may be possible, however, to imagine a situation where a fine mist of the liquid phosphate is generated and a worker may be exposed. This would be rare, but could occur if a line that's under pressure where you're pumping the chemical to your application point has a small cut or a leak, and you're now misting or spraying and pumping that product into the air. In that case, you should avoid the area, or if you have to go in the area to shut a pump off, then you would want to wear a mist respirator to protect yourself from inhaling the liquid product in the air. As far as the PPE required for these phosphate products, because these products are corrosive and they can cause burns that result in damage to the eye, you'll want to make sure you're wearing eye protection, and the type of eye protection should be leveled up depending on what your application is. For the dry phosphate products, these are crystalline in nature, so if you were to get some of the dust in your eye, the crystals are sharp and abrasive and could scratch the eye surface. So generally in that type of case, you may want to wear a face shield just to protect the dust from getting in your eyes, or some type of splash goggles so you don't get the dust in your eyes. If you're handling a liquid product, you may just use safety glasses with side shields because you're worried about a little bit of splashing, or if you're working on a pump or taking a bulk delivery of the product, then you may want to level up to a face shield to provide protection of a large spill if you're filling a bulk tank. As far as skin contact with the products, contact with the concentrated solutions, because of the corrosive nature, will be damaging to the skin. So you'll definitely want to wear appropriate gloves when handling these types of products. Also, depending on how much product that you're transferring, you may want to wear a protective apron or suit to prevent exposure to your clothes. With the case of the liquid products, you can be exposed and it will soak through your typical work clothes and get exposed to your skin, and the corrosive nature can be dangerous. So I mentioned earlier that these phosphate products are also in a lot of products that we consume or eat on a daily basis. And those are at much lower levels than what we're talking about in our neat product containers, both in the dry form and the liquid form. These products should not be eaten or drinking in their neat chemical form. When you're handling these products, you're always going to want to wash your hands before eating or drinking or smoking after you've handled these products. Like I said earlier, because of the corrosive nature, if these phosphate products are swallowed, they can cause severe burns to the mouth, throat, esophagus, and stomach. If ingestion occurs, immediately rinse the mouth and drink plenty of water. Never give anything by mouth to a victim who's been unconscious or is having convulsions. Do not induce vomiting. If a vomiting occurs, keep head low so that stomach content doesn't get into lungs. If you have somebody to swallow a large quantity, get medical attention immediately. This is all contained within Section 4 of the SDS. I now want to discuss how to properly store phosphate products and the potential hazardous conditions that you should be aware of. Phosphate products are manufactured and packaged in containers made of compatible materials. When phosphate is repackaged into smaller container sizes, the proper container materials must be used. Under normal conditions, phosphates are very stable and have a shelf life of many months. We'll go into that in the next several slides. Cautionary statements regarding proper storage reflect the concerns of accidental leakage or spills from the original package mixing with incompatible materials on the warehouse floor or in the drainage system. In a warehouse, be aware that lift fork trucks may puncture a phosphate package. Phosphate that leaks from a damaged container can react with other materials on the warehouse floor. So what you'll see in the phosphate storage requirements is a recommendation to not store these products next to strong caustics, most metals, oxidizers, solutions containing bleach or ammonia. The reason for this storage requirement is products like bleach and ammonia have a very high pH, and these zinc orthophosphates and orthophosphate products have a very low pH. The reaction will be a neutralization reaction, but also because of bleach and ammonia wanting to come out of solution at lower pHs, you will also off-gas ammonia to the atmosphere and chlorine to the atmosphere if you were to mix these two products in the neat form. Now, depending on other types of products, you want to also avoid things like hydrofluoric or hydrofluoroxylic acid because you will get precipitation. When involved in a fire, these products can form toxic fumes of phosphorus, zinc oxides, depending on the type of product, hydrogen chloride, sulfur, sodium, and or chlorine, depending on the formulation. All this information is in Section 7 of the SDS under handling and storage. One thing to keep in mind, that the phosphate products do have a cold weather advisory that we have out there. One thing to keep in mind with these products, if they are exposed to cold weather, there will be a definitive increase in viscosity. The products will get thicker. And then depending on if the product has gotten cold enough to freeze and then thaw, you may see some precipitation, some cloudiness in the product. The liquid products are typically going to look crystal clear when they arrive at your site, but if they've frozen thawed, sometimes they'll look milky white or there'll be some white precipitation of solids in it. So one of the things to keep in mind is to prevent these from exposure to cold weather. So don't store them outside or store them in unheated buildings if the temperature is going to drop below 0 in the building. Depending on the type of product that you're using, there's also a shelf life statement for each of these products. For the dry products in the zinc orthos and orthophosphates, typically we list 1 year in a controlled environment in bags and 2.5 years in a controlled environment in pails. You can see several bags of the product here inside a well house for storage. For the liquid products, we say 3 years in a controlled environment. So why the difference? For the dry products, the biggest issue is in a sealed container, they're fine. But over time, if you open a lid for a pail or you have a break in the bag, these products are hygroscopic. They will pick up moisture from the environment and they'll get very hard and very lumpy. So with the dry products, we're concerned if you store them for a very long period of time, you open or close the container, or there's physical damage to the container, they're going to pick up moisture and become very hard to feed because they'll be lumpy. With the liquid products, obviously you can see much longer shelf life and not much issue there. Lastly, for storage and handling, we want to talk about phosphate material compatibility. We also have this information available on our website. Some of the standard materials used for zinc orthophosphates and orthophosphates would be high density polyethylene, cross-linked high density polyethylene, 316 stainless steel, fiberglass. For the plumbing materials, typically you'll see things like Schedule 80 PVC or 316 stainless steel. One thing to keep in mind, if you're using one of the zinc orthos, they are not compatible with stainless steel, so you'll want to use the high density polyethylene or the fiberglass or the Schedule 80 PVC for pumping that material around. It's just the phosphoric acid based products that you can use with stainless steel. And that's because of a corrosion concern between the chloride content of some zinc orthos and the material itself. The NFPA hazard code for zinc orthophosphates and phosphoric acid-based products is typically going to be this. The health hazard will be 3. Under fire conditions, it can give off irritating combustion products. The flammability hazard is considered a 0. Non-flammable, will not burn, but will support combustion. Reactivity hazard is considered 0, normally stable, not reactive with water. And the special hazard in a lot of cases will be none. For fire extinguishing for these products, typically you'll see water, CO2, powders, or foam can be used to extinguish fires related to phosphate products. You do want to burn to contain the water, and you want to refer to section 5 of the SDS for these products. The other thing that you may have, depending on the state you're located in, is there is an HMIS hazard code for these products as well. It's going to be similar to the NFPA diamond, but it's also going to include a protective equipment category. In this case, you can see the health hazard is the same at 3. Flammability hazard stays the same at 0. Reactivity hazard stays the same at 0. And it adds that protective equipment category, which says when handling these products, you're going to want to wear a minimum of safety glasses, gloves, and then depending on the type of product, a dust respirator if you're handling dry. Now, if you do have a spill with these products, it's going to determine if you have dry or liquid, what you have to do. If a dry phosphate is spilled, sweep up the material and transfer it to a clean metal drum. Do not return this spilled product to the original package if that container still contains phosphate that has not been spilled. The reason for this is you don't want anything that was on the floor to be picked up with the dry phosphate and then put back into the container that you're going to use, because ultimately that product's going to be put into the finished drinking water. Information on this is included in section 13 of the SDS. For liquid phosphate spill cleanup, you're going to want to contain or isolate the liquid in a pit or a holding area. Then absorb with inert media and dispose of properly. You do not want to dispose of these products by flushing them to the sewer because of the low pH and the zinc content. Also, if there is a storm sewer or ditches that lead to waterways nearby, you want to avoid that runoff by containing it or diking the product to keep it in there. If you are to have a release to the environment, you want to report this to the required agencies because it does have a reportable quantity. This is also included in section 13 of the SDS. Now, why are these types of products, orthophosphates and zinc orthophosphates, considered hazardous? In the United States, domestic shipments of commodities are governed by Title 49 of the Code of Federal Regulations. What it does is it establishes and identifies hazardous materials, what quantity limitations there are, what is the specific packaging that you need, how do you need to mark and label the package when it arrives at the customer sites, what needs to be on the shipping certificates and shipping papers, and then how do you placard the vehicle transporting the shipment to the customer site. Depending on the type of product you get, you're going to see one of these two labels from the Department of Transportation. So if you're getting a solid, it's going to have this UN number 3260, corrosive, solid, acidic, inorganic. Depending on the type of product, contains sodium bisulfate. The reportable quantity typically listed for these types of products are going to be 1,000 pounds because of the zinc content. For the liquid form, you're going to see corrosive, liquid, acidic, inorganic, phosphoric acid in parentheses. This will be identified by UN number 3264 and will have a reportable quantity of 5,000 pounds. You'll also see that hazard class will be division 8 and packing group will be 3 for these types of products. And there's the DOT symbol that you'll see for corrosive on the truck. There are 2 US acts that regulate the release or disposal of these phosphate products to the environment. The Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, RCRA, establishes the 4 characteristics that determine if something is a hazardous waste. You can see ignitability, corrosivity, reactivity, and EPA toxicity. Wastes or waste streams exhibiting characteristics of these will have reportable quantities of 5,000. Phosphate is specifically called out as hazardous under the corrosivity waste characteristic. The other US Act that you see is the Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation, and Liability Act, CERCLA 1980, which is also referred to as the Superfund site. This also lists the dry or liquid hazardous phosphate released to the environment must be reported if it exceeds the reportable quantity. So depending on whether you have a phosphoric acid product or a zinc orthophosphate product, those components are going to determine what the reportable quantity is based on that content. So you could have anywhere from zinc chloride to zinc sulfate to phosphoric acid in each of these products, or a combination of those. Liquid phosphates that contain phosphoric acid, specifically with no zinc content, will have a reportable quantity of 5,000 pounds. Liquid phosphates containing zinc chloride or zinc sulfate, in addition to phosphoric acid, will have a reportable quantity of 1,000 pounds. If this is released outside your fence line to the environment, or if a truck delivering the product were to have a spill before it arrived to your site and the product was released to the environment there, these are reportable quantities that you have to report. To report this release, you have to call the National Response Center, NRC, at the 800 number below. So disposal of the product in the container. So since these phosphate products are considered corrosive, they need to be handled through a licensed disposal company if you're going to dispose of the product. Also, the packaging that the product arrives in must be triple rinsed to try to eliminate the corrosivity, and the label must be removed prior to you recycling or disposing of the containers. So one of the things we always tell our customers when they're handling containers of these types of products is after they've transferred the product or used the product out of the package, they're going to want to rinse the packaging out, and then they're going to want to remove the label or cross the label out so the label's no longer on it before they dispose of the container in the waste. This is all contained in section 13 of the SDS. That covers everything on our hazardous phosphate products. So that includes the zinc orthophosphates and the phosphoric acid products. The other major group of phosphate products that we have are what are considered blended phosphates or neutralized orthophosphates. These products are typically going to be used for both corrosion control and sequestration. And some of our dry powders will be the Carus 2000 series. Our liquids will be the 4000 series, the 8000 series, Aquamag, and the CalSequest product lines. These products will look very similar in their dry and liquid forms to the zinc orthophosphates and the phosphoric acid products. Liquid versions will look clear like the picture. The dry products will look like a dry white granular product as well. But the hazards are distinctly different between these two different types of phosphate products. The same way we communicate information for the hazardous products will be the same way we do for these non-hazardous phosphate products. It'll be included in safety data sheets, chemical safety reports for Europe and REACH, package label, pictograms, and warning placards for these products. There'll be an SDS available for each of our blended phosphate products. Because these products are considered not hazardous chemicals, you'll notice on the SDS on the right-hand side, there are no pictograms available because of that. These blended phosphate products are typically stable under normal conditions, both in the dry form and the liquid form, but all the information that you would be looking for handling these products and the safety concerns will be included in the safety data sheet, just like it is for the zinc orthos and phosphoric acid products. Like I mentioned, there are no health hazard pictograms for the blended phosphate products because they are pH neutral typically. The phosphate label requirements, though, even for these type of products are the same. The label is going to include the name, address, and telephone number. It's going to include the product identifier, so the name of the product. It'll include a signal word, if there is one, a hazard statement, precautionary statements, and supplementary information. For the blended phosphates and the neutralized orthophosphate products, there is no signal word because there is no significant hazard to these products. You'll see this also followed in the hazard statement. This is the hazard statement for blended phosphates. The mixture does not meet the criteria for classification because there are no known significant hazards to these products. The precautionary statements for the blended phosphates. You can see they're much lesser than the zinc orthophosphates and the phosphoric acid-based products. Prevention, observe good industrial hygiene practices. Response, if you were to be exposed, wash hands after handling. For storage, store away from incompatible materials. Disposal, dispose of waste and residues in accordance with local authority requirements. So much less than the other products. What phosphate environmental and physical hazards do we have for these products? There are none listed for the blended phosphate products. As far as worker safety, personal protective equipment for these products, you should always review the SDS for your current product. And this is going to list the same things you saw earlier. Provide adequate ventilation, dust or mist may irritate, eye protection should be worn, safety glasses with side shields, avoid skin contact, read and understand the safety data sheet and all product labels. We'll go into each of these in a little more detail. If you're handling the dry phosphate products that are blended, the dust may be irritating to the respiratory tract. So typically you're going to use a dust respirator or a dust mask when you're handling these products. It's the customer's duty to determine if, while handling these products, they're going to have a risk of how much dust will be in the environment or if there could be a mist. Like I talked about earlier, these products aren't corrosive, but if there was a mist in the air, like a pump or a line was broken pumping the product, then you might want to have a mist respirator when you're handling that. Because these products are not corrosive in the blended form, eye protection should be worn if you think you're going to have contact, but it's only going to typically include safety glasses with side shields. And you want to make sure when you're removing those that you that you move them away from the head so you don't get whatever's on the glasses in your eyes. As far as skin contact with blended phosphates, typically we recommend that you wear gloves when handling them, or you could also wear an apron if you think you're going to be exposed and you're going to have to change your clothing out. But because they're not corrosive, there's not much risk of damage to the skin while handling these products. You'll still see the same do not eat or drink phosphate or any other chemical when you're handling these. These are in the concentrated form, like I said earlier. So this is a much higher concentration than the things that we eat on a daily basis or drink like a can of soda. If you're handling these products, you always want to wash your hands before eating, drinking, or smoking. If you were to ingest them, immediately rinse the mouth, drink plenty of water. If you were to have symptoms, then you'll want to get medical attention. This is all included in section 4 of the SDS for the different blended phosphate products. Phosphate storage requirements for the blends. These are going to be stable under normal conditions. You do want to take care to protect the containers from physical damage. When involved in a fire, they can give off toxic fumes of phosphorus. Information on this handling and storage is in section 7 of the SDS. The blended phosphates also have a cold weather advisory as well. You don't want to expose these products to extreme temperatures. In the case of cold weather, you'll see an increase in viscosity for the product. They'll get thicker. And then the same thing happens with these products. Freezing and thawing may cause some salts to crash out, so the clear product will become milky white or cloudy based on that. Now, freezing and thawing a blended phosphate product, which will include polyphosphate, can also cause some loss of the polyphosphate to ortho, so you may not have as good sequestering after a freeze thaw as you did before. As far as shelf life for these products on the blended side of things, the dry products, stable for 1 year in a controlled environment in bags, 2.5 years in a controlled environment in pails. The same thing holds true here for these dry products. These dry products will pick up moisture from the environment and will get hard and lumpy the longer they sit in those containers. Hence the reason why we want them used in a relatively timely fashion. For the liquid products, depending on if they're a blend of polyphosphate and orthophosphate or they're a straight polyphosphate, we typically want these products used within 6 months to 1 year in a controlled environment, because you will lose some polyphosphate to orthophosphate over time. So you do lose some of your sequestering ability the longer these products sit on the shelf. As far as phosphate material compatibility for storage, pumps, and plumbing, typically most storage tanks are going to be high density polyethylene or cross-linked polyethylene. It's a rarity that we see a fiberglass or a stainless steel tank, but you could use them for the blended phosphates. For plumbing, it's almost always going to be Schedule 80 PVC or flexible tubing like polyethylene or polypropylene. It's a rarity that we see 316 stainless steel for a blended phosphate, but you could use it. All this information is available on our material compatibility sheet. As far as the NFPA hazard code for blended phosphates and pH-adjusted orthophosphates, typically they're going to have one of two NFPA hazard codes. They either have this one with a health hazard of 1, a flammability hazard of 0, a reactivity hazard of 0, and a special hazard of none. Or the health hazard on some of them will also be rated as a 0 instead of a 1. For fire extinguishing with these products, you can use water, CO2, powders, or foam to extinguish the fires involving these products. You do want a berm to contain the water, and this information is in section 5 of the SDS. As far as the HMIS hazard code, you're going to see either the health be a 1 or a 0. The flammability and reactivity will both be 0. And the protective equipment category is going to be E, which says safety glasses, gloves, and a dust respirator if it's a dry product. So very similar to the much more corrosive products of the zinc orthos and the phosphoric acids, but the health hazard being significantly different at 1 versus 3. As far as spill cleanup for these blended phosphates, you want to clean up immediately if you spill the dry phosphate on the floor by sweeping or shoveling. Once again, because these products are going into finished drinking water, you don't want to return product that is spilt on the floor to the original drum or to the tank that's going to be then dosed to the drinking water, because you don't know what's been on the floor. So you don't want that exposure to get into the finished drinking water. As far as the liquid phosphate, blended phosphates, you're going to want to contain or isolate the liquid in a pit or a holding area, absorb with inert media, and then dispose of properly. All this information is included in section 13 of the SDS. Like I had mentioned earlier, materials transported are subject to the Code of Federal Regulations, Department of Transportation. Specifically for blended phosphate products, because these are considered not hazardous, they are not regulated by the Department of Transportation, so you will not see a placard on the truck. These blended phosphate products also do not have a reportable quantity as well. So they will not have either the things you see on the phosphoric acid or zinc orthophosphate based products. As far as disposal, if you were to dispose of a large quantity, you want to go through a licensed disposal company. Even though these products are not hazardous, you want them to be disposed of properly. Your packaging should be rinsed and the label removed as well prior to recycling or disposing of the containers. So this would be the pails, the drums, or the IBCs.
All right, thanks, Darin. And listed here is our sales territory map with regional sales managers' contact information. Feel free to reach out to your sales manager in your region. Okay. And thanks everyone for joining today. Thanks, Darin, for presenting. Everyone, have a great day.